So I arrived yesterday from Nogales, Arizona, via Phoenix back to Southern California. And I have roots here. Not only am I from Anaheim, California, don't hold it against me for being from Orange County, but I also served at Dolores Mission for 4 years, from 2004 to 2008. And I know Dolores Mission has had a wonderful relationship with Holy Family over the years. But for almost 11 years, I've been on the U.S.-Mexican border, really straddling the border between Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora, in this ministry called the Kino Boarder Initiative, named after a Jesuit missionary, Eusebio Francisco Kino, a great innovator, a real Renaissance man who had a deep impact on that region where we work today. And a lot of what we do is not only provide humanitarian assistance, a real center where we provide for the basic needs of migrants, previously mostly deportees, but now an increasing number of families coming north. But also we have a shelter for women and children because of their particular vulnerability, along with educational and advocacy programming. As you can imagine, I've met many people over the years who have come seeking our services. And among the many people I could talk to you about this evening, I think of one grandmother raising her 4-year-old grandson in the country of Honduras. Her daughter was working in Dallas, and so this grandmother trying to provide for her child, for her grandchild. Well, a couple of gang members came by one day and they said, we think you've been telling on us. You've been snitching on us. She said, no, I haven't been doing that. But they didn't believe her, and one day she was in the home with her grandson, Kevin. She looked out the window and she saw a group of men approaching her house. And she had an intuition about what was about to happen. And so she took 4-year-old Kevin by the hand, she left the home, went out through the back area, and at some distance hid behind the house. And from that place, with 4-year-old Kevin, she watched these men enter her house and burn it to the ground. And as she told me later, she said, and I knew I was next. They burned my house down. Next, they'll take my life. So she took Kevin and she made her way north, as so many do, through Honduras and Guatemala, riding on top of that train known as the Beast. Extremely vulnerable, especially with a child. Sleeping by the train tracks along the way, not having anywhere to sleep at times. And arriving in Nogales, Sonora, and arriving at our center, and arriving at a place where she could provide some safety and support for her grandchild, and look at how to reunite him with his mother. Among the many things that strike me about Nana and Kevin's story is about the deep love that compelled Nana to leave everything she knew in order to find safety for her child. Literally in order to provide life for her child. And I think it reminds us of what love can empower us to do, especially in difficult moments. Perhaps even in the face of family resistance. But when we are called out of love to do extraordinary things and ordinary things, how it puts everything into perspective, and how more and more God becomes primary in our lives. And how in those moments we can be more attentive to God's voice, to God's invitation, to God's prompting, and go places that perhaps we didn't think we could go. What helps us live from that place? What helps us live from that place with God at the center, with God at the lead, and living from that place in which that power of love that comes from the wisdom of God, that Spirit which is accessible to us, moves in us and leads us forward. There's a woman who has a very powerful ministry with parishes in Colorado. And she works with parishes to help people there identify their gifts, their charisms. Those gifts God has given them to live out in their lives in the church. And she wrote a book a number of years ago called Forming Intentional Disciples. And what she says in that book is that there are really three journeys that we live out as Catholics and as people of faith. Yes, there are the sacraments of initiation, baptism, First Communion, confirmation. Yes, we live out our church going to Mass and participating in the sacraments and ministries in the church. But she says there's a third journey that we can tend to neglect at times, which is equally as important to living out that power of love, living out that life as disciples of Christ. And it's forming that personal relationship with Jesus, cultivating that personal relationship with Jesus, opening ourselves to deeper intimacy with him. As Monsignor Conley said this morning, a powerful way that happens is through the gift of detachment, where we let go of what is secondary or sometimes not so secondary and embrace what is primary and what is essential to nurturing that relationship with Jesus and living from that place. And I think when we remember those experiences of living out that power of love, even in challenging moments, that relationship is deepened. And many things, perhaps even family, are put in perspective so that we live out what is essential in living our lives as followers of Jesus. That's what enabled Paul to entrust Onesimus to Philemon and the Colossian community. That's what's enabled Holy Family over these years. Support the ministry in Haiti and to enter into this relationship of solidarity with Dolores Mission. This is what's helped this community over the years look beyond its boundaries, beyond its walls, really following this invitation of Pope Francis to look outward and see, where are we being invited? Where are we being called? And nurtured and strengthened by that triplicate journey, being able to respond to those needs and so live out that relationship with Christ more fully and more authentically, living out that wisdom of God, which is accessible to all of us. After this liturgy and after the tacos, first things first, I'm going to have an opportunity just to talk a little bit about not only what's happening on the border and about our particular ministry, the Kino Boarder Initiative, but really, I think most critically, what is God doing there? How is God at work there? And what does that mean for us? And really to enter into a dialogue where we go deeper on some of these important questions that are challenging and difficult and yet so important. And coming to a deeper sense of why this challenging issue of migration, why it matters to the church. And what we may be invited to do in response. So as we come to the table of the Lord, we come to the one who pours himself out totally to us, the one who empties himself completely for us, the one who makes himself vulnerable in our hands and in our beings, in our spirits. And he does that so that we are broken open as well. And so that as we come to deeper intimacy with him, we also come to a place in which we encounter the one who is the center, the one who is essential, detached from everything that gets in the way, and embracing the one who leads us forward, and who leads us forward as his daughters and sons. And perhaps as we receive the Eucharist today, that prayer of St. Ignatius of Loyola, which he prayed out of deep gratitude for all that God had given him in his life, healing, forgiveness, hope, life, that perhaps the spirit of that prayer will fill our spirits as well. And in that prayer, he said this: "Take, Lord, receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, my entire will, all that I have and possess. You have given all to me. To you, O Lord, I return it. Dispose of it according to your will. Give me only your love and your grace. That is enough for me."